Today I'm going to start by roughing out the shape of the back plate. I have the pattern glued in place and I've cut a lot of it out because it's mainly straight lines, and I did that on the bandsaw. I've also cut in all the relief cuts that I'm going to need for the curved sections. I'm also going to be doing the final shaping on the cover plate and cutting it to shape as well. The only real critical part of this whole pattern is the location of the handle on the cover plate and the back plate. They have to line up exactly. So I'm going to mark that center punch hole on each plate to make sure that it doesn't get lost while I'm working on the other parts of the pattern. I'm going to be switching to the anvil block in the vise just because it gives a lot more support for the size of this pattern. I'm using a narrow cold chisel and I'm just hammering the chisel in just outside of the line. I'll be filing up to the line later. With this method, all you need to do is drive the cold chisel directly into the surface of the plate, about a third of the thickness of the plate. And this score mark weakens the plate to such a point where you can just flex the waste pieces back and forth a couple of times and they'll break away. This backplate design is just something I made up. I use transitions that were commonly used in traditional designs, so it seems familiar, but it isn't a copy of anything. As I mentioned earlier, the design really grew out of having to cover up a couple of holes in the door from modern hardware. The cover plate needs a little bit more work. As you can see here, the one leg is veering off of the pattern, so I'll need to correct that, otherwise the next bend is going to be out of line also. Here I'm setting up a pair of calipers so I can use the bottom of the pattern as a reference point to determine whether I've straightened the top leg out or not. I don't want to trust the pattern at this point because it may move as I'm hammering the piece. I'm setting the cover plate up in a vise insert so I can try to get more even clamping pressure across the entire face of the piece. The vice jaws being out of alignment slightly is probably how I got this crooked in the first place. And I'm also going to be backing it up with a hammer to make sure that it doesn't move. And then it's just a matter of carefully working the high side back down to where it belongs. So that brought it back in line. Now I can continue cutting out this piece the same way I did the back plate. Once I have the piece roughed out, I'm going to be positioning it in the vise with my vise insert. This allows me to move it around and do whatever I have to do to get to all of the corners without bumping into the vise jaws. I'm going to be riveting this cover plate to the back plate, so I need to bend the bottom of the legs over so I have somewhere to place the rivets. And this is done exactly the same way. I'm using a light hammer to cross peen the corner down, and I'm supporting everything with a heavier hammer. When I bent this foot over, I was careful not to hammer too close to the vise insert, so that would create a larger bend and give me the room I need to hammer back to the vise insert, because the space that I need here is a 1/2 inch, and I'm using a 1/2 inch vise insert, so that worked out well. The lever that I'm going to use to lift the latch bar is going to be mounted on a 1/2 inch pipe. And that 1/2 inch pipe is what I'm going to use to connect the inside and the outside door handles so they work together. The problem I'm having here is that the outside diameter of that 1/2 inch pipe is a little over 5/8 of an inch, and the largest drill that I have is 5/8 of an inch. So I need to punch this hole very accurately so that the lever is a tight fit over top of this pipe. So what I'm doing here is I'm transferring the diameter of the pipe to the punch that I'm going to be using. And then I'm going to set the punch on top of the bar so the chalk mark lines up with the top face of the bar. And then I'm going to measure how much of the punch is sticking out the bottom end. And then it's just a matter of drifting the hole until the punch sticks out by the amount that I have set on the calipers. I'll run the punch from both sides to get the inside of the hole as straight as possible. So if I measured everything properly, these two pieces should be a fairly tight fit. I'm looking for the clamping pressure that I'm going to get from a tight fit, but I don't want to have to use an 8-pound hammer to drive the pieces together. I need this pipe to be straight when everything's done because I have to run a 1/2-inch bar through the center of it to attach both handles together. Here I've cut the lever off the bar so I can set it in the fire, and I'm bringing the whole thing up very carefully to braising temperature. I don't want to melt the pipe, and I need to have everything hot right through so that the braise will flow inside the joint. I'm applying some common household borax as a flux here, and I'm going to put it back in the fire, bring it all up very carefully. I normally use copper wire for brazing, but I didn't have any around today for some reason, so I'm going to be brazing this with a regular brazing rod. Same thing you would use with an oxyacetylene torch. And as you can see, I'm just reaching into the fire with the rod and applying it that way. The problem with doing it this way is that the work tends to get a lot harder than it needs to be to melt the wire, because you're inserting a cold wire into the fire and then the piece has to heat the wire up and melt it. So without the wire being on there, you really don't have any idea if you're overheating the piece or not. And if you overheat an alloy like brass, it'll start to break down, and you'll see that in a moment. That blue flame you're seeing is actually the zinc burning out of the brass, so what's left is really just a copper wire. The last thing I want to do today is cut the holes for the pipe through the back plate and the cover plate so I can get an idea how this whole thing is going to look assembled. Again, I don't have a drill the right size, so I need to drill out the 5/8 that I do have and then file the rest of it to the final size. So what I need to do first is scribe the final size of the hole, because I need that center punch mark to be able to do that. Once I have that established, I can drill out the center with the 5/8 drill that I have and then file what's left up to the line. So here's the back plate and the cover plate with a little bit of filing, so I'm ready to mock up how this is going to go together. This 1/2-inch pipe holds the lever that's going to lift the latch bar, and it runs right through to the other side of the door. Once the cover plate is installed, it's going to be held in position. The latch bar fits right through here. The handle arrangement is going to be similar to what I had on my original door latch. The outside handle is one piece that's going to reach inside and attach to the inside door handle. Hi, I'm Dennis, and thanks for watching. If you liked this video, by all means give it a thumbs up. If you want to support this channel, you have a couple of options to do that. The first, of course, is to just subscribe. Secondly, if you have any suggestions or photographs of things you'd like to see on this channel, send them along and I'll do my best to turn them into a video. If you want to lend your financial support, you can do that in a couple of ways. First, if you're interested in making an ongoing contribution to this channel, just click the Patreon icon and it'll take you to my Patreon page, and you can donate whatever amount you feel comfortable with. If you want to make a one-time contribution, just go to my channel homepage and click the donate button in the banner. So thank you for your support, and with your help I'll be doing this for some time to come. I'll see you next time.